All right, awesome. So it's 3:30. If anything I've learned over the last year of doing these webinars, this hour goes by quickly. And the more brilliant minds you have on the call, the faster it goes. So let me start by reading our unceded land statement. Touro University, California sits on the traditional unceded lands of the Karkin people, one of the 8 Ohlone tribes in the Bay Area that was a part of the unratified treaties of 1851 and 1852. Solano County is also the historic home to various tribes of the Patwin and Miwok people. So I want to just welcome everyone to our Diversity Now series. This week, we have the great honor and pleasure of having the founders of Elite, the co-founders of Elite Public Schools with us today, Dr. Alana Shackelford and Dr. Ramona Bishop. I would just say this. So we have had the pleasure this semester of having some folks, and I feel selfish, but they left me in charge of booking the talent. So when you get the opportunity to book the talent, you go for folks that has not only had a tremendous impact on the field, but has had a tremendous impact on you. And so Dr. Shackelford and Dr. Bishop are two individuals that I hold in high esteem. I feel like sometimes I can't even call myself doctor around them because they have really set the bar, and they were instrumental in me being able to graduate on time, and really have influenced the way that I think about education and the way that I approach the work. And so these two powerful administrators are with us today to share their insights with us. And so I'm gonna just give them an opportunity to kind of introduce themselves and say hello before we get into some questions. So whoever wants to jump in first can go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and to our Turo family. We are very pleased to be here. I am Dr. Shackelford, Deputy CEO of Elite Public Schools. And when we received today's invitation to be panelists, we were more than happy and grateful for the opportunity. So, Dr. Onanuji, we appreciate you reaching out to us, and as always, appreciate working with you on a number of our projects. So, thank you. Dr. Bishop.
And good afternoon. I'm Dr. Ramona Bishop. I'm president and CEO and also co-founder of Elite Public Schools. And I echo the support from our Turo family has been wonderful as we've educated in Vallejo for so long. And Dr. Onanuju, I can't wait to hear what you're going to ask us. I hope you're going to bring it today because this is that kind of day.
All righty, then. I'm gonna start off with the easier questions. The reason why I initially wanted to have you both on is because you all are undertaking a tremendous opportunity with the development of Elite Public Schools. And I've since its inception, I have been fascinated with this idea of ensuring that our youth are trilingual. And I think when most folks think of language, English and Spanish is commonplace, right? Like a lot of folks are like, okay, that makes sense. But you all added the wrinkle of coding as well, and thinking of coding as a distinct language that is necessary for our youth to learn. With COVID-19 in the last year, it almost has made you all look like visionaries, right? Like now we all kind of get it. Like if your children aren't technology proficient, and if they don't understand the language of coding, right, they're really missing out on what the future is going to look like. So I was hoping you all could start us off with just explaining your vision around creating a group of young people that are going to be trilingual for the future.
So I can start. I think as we had conversations with our parents and grandparents in order to build the petition, Ijoma, they were certainly wanting students to graduate, with all of the A through G criteria met. That's a standard. However, they really wanted also for their young people to, some of them even talked about go to college and then come back and contribute to Vallejo. Or wherever you are, be successful in what it is that you are doing. And so what we know is that the world is moving into a technology world, and it moved rapidly based on COVID-19. And we wanted to make sure that our students could, first of all, work for themselves, because there are way too many storefronts open in Vallejo, vacant and ready for somebody to take over, but also work in some of these engineering fields that are technology based. And that really, we're right by Google and Facebook and all those different wonderful tech giants. But when you go, you do not see the diversity that's reflected in Vallejo. So we wanted to make sure that should our children want to go out and work for someone, that they can work for someone within our community. It is a commute from Vallejo, and that they would be prepared to do so. And of course, Spanish is a global language. We've talked about Spanish for so long, but the problem is in our traditional systems, that language instruction comes at high school, right? And it's really too late to learn a second or a third language in high school. We wanted to start when our students were in TK and make sure that they were completely proficient in all three moving forward.
In addition to what Dr. Bishop stated, taking on the vision of young people being trilingual, we also knew that it was important to create the type of environment that would allow that to happen, right? So when we talk about young people being proficient in English, in Spanish, and in coding, that takes a lot of rigor. And it takes the type of leadership. And when I speak of leadership, I'm speaking of teacher leadership. It takes the type of leadership that mirrors what we built the vision around. And that's a belief culture. We've built elite when writing the vision and the mission along with our parents who came with us, our founding parents. It was important to our parents that we hire the type of teacher that believes in all students. That's easy to say, but you have to work in this belief, which means you have to be prepared to face some of the challenges that come along with teaching and work differently than you might be used to working in other systems. And so a large part of our vision relies on not just the formal leaders of the house, but everyone within our elite family, building that culture of belief.
So the both of you have said a number of things that have really struck me and have almost kind of taking my thought process in a different direction, right? Here I am thinking that the trilingual piece of it is the most fascinating part of elite. But really what I'm hearing the both of you say is whatever the trilingual piece is, it is a reflection of us working hand in hand and collaborating with our community and being responsive to what our community is asking us to do. That aspect is something that is missing in the conversation around diversity in education. And in particular, Dr. Bishop, I love the way you said, we have too many storefronts open here in the city of Vallejo. So we are not preparing trilingual students to go out into the global job market. We're preparing them to be able to function on a global level, but live and respond at a local level, which I think is pretty fascinating. But what I want to ask you is about the teacher piece, the staffing piece, right? How do you find, and I'm asking you this question in part because I don't think all teacher education programs prepare teachers and educators in the way that you are speaking of, right? Which is not just about pedagogy and your ability to teach, or it's not just about classroom management. It is about who are you as a leader, and can you actually respond to young people and families in a way that goes beyond just the content. How do you find folks who have that when not all schools are producing that?
So that's a great question. And that is the question that we are faced with every time we sit across from a person we are interviewing. So one of the first things we began to do is edit our questions. I think every time we go through different rounds of interviews, we become better at asking the types of questions that yield and that brings out more of what who that person is across from us. It's one thing to read our mission and our vision, but to ensure that the person really understands what we are asking for, it's been very interesting this past year and a half. Our questions have become more focused on our customer, and our customers are our young people. Questions such as, why work in a brown and Black community? What is your why? That's really important to us. Another question is learning about how teachers utilize love through discipline, right? Because we are definitely proponents of restorative justice and seeking other types of disciplinary responses other than suspensions and time out of school. Because what we know, our vision is very rigorous. And if our young people are to learn 3 languages, it requires them to be in school. And so we have to work differently to make that happen. So that's one thing that we are consistently doing, is reframing our questions to be able to, for the person interviewing, to be able to show who they are and what their why is. That's really important. Dr. Bishop?
And so I would piggyback on that and say this, Ijoma, because I believe you have said this to me, born and raised in Vallejo, right? Which is very much like what I heard when I taught in Oakland. I was born and raised in Oakland, which is like what I heard when I went to Sacramento. I was born and raised in Oak Park. And that is telling you that there's a branding that individual brings that they believe is important. And so what they're telling you is, if you don't believe in this city, if you don't believe in me, then perhaps you don't belong here. And people will look you eye to eye and tell you that. So we are saying, are you born and raised to teach here? Because our objective is to teach all kids. This is not, we're not going to gentrify this system like many school systems have been gentrified. We're not kicking out the kids that don't respond the first time. We love all of our children and all of our families. And that comes with a certain level of responsibility. So all three of us, Dr. Mr. Santos and I, have all been teachers. We have all been successful teachers, the kind of teacher that the parent seeks out. And we expect that all of our teachers are going to have that same level of branding. So what does that mean? That means that there are times where we have had to have intern teachers, that we have teachers that are brand new to this business. And that's okay, because they are born and raised to do this work, right? We have teachers that come with credentials that have done this work over time. That's okay, because they are born and raised to do this work. We have teachers who have selected our school over and above any other school around. That's beautiful, because they are born and raised to do this work. And if there is something that we need to teach them, we can teach them because we've been successful in the classroom. We're not administrators that jumped right to the administrative office to try to make a lot of money. We're people who are rolling up their sleeves and can absolutely teach any class, doesn't matter the content, doesn't matter, based on our relationships with students and our commitment to our vision. Thank you.
Well, I'm gonna apologize to our attendees right now, because I'm getting ready to get personal here, because this ain't even about them no more. This is about me right now with some of the stuff y'all are laying on us. So right now at Toro, we are in the process of looking at just what is the culture or the DNA of our program. I had the awesome opportunity to be the coordinator of our equity, diversity, and inclusive education program. And one of the things that I've said from day one is DEI, is it in your DNA? Is it something, we often talk about diversity and equity, cultural relevance. We often talk about these things in a very prescriptive way. But what I hear you all talking about it is in the way that I think about it, which is like, we want folks who this stuff is not something that is prescriptive, but it's a part of their DNA. Dr. Shack, I still remember a time that you and we were in your office and we were talking, and you said, we're looking for folks who have that it, right? And it seems like you all are getting closer and closer to being able to identify and define what that it factor is for your school. My question is as a program who is preparing teachers, many of whom may end up at Elite's doorstep one day, what can we do to better prepare our candidates so that they are bringing that born and raised, that love, that commitment to, like, what are some of the things that we can do as a partner for you, right? And for other schools to say that we're developing that type of educator that can go to an elite and be successful.
I think starting with their why are you here? And then just some real basic checkpoints. One would be, do you like children? You are laughing. You have to love what it is that you do. I can't teach you to love Black and brown kids. That's just, you have to already be there. You have to be willing to check your own biases at the door. And that's everybody. You have to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations, because I'm gonna tell you now, our kids are more than ready. And our kids are looking for that type of teacher who will have real conversations with them about the things that they experience, the things that they're seeing every day on the news. And you have to be willing and comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'm not saying you have to be perfect and you have to have all the answers, but you do have to be comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations because our kids want to know. Our kids want to talk about it. And so those are just a few. What is your why? And do you love children? That's all children, not just a particular type of child, right? But all children and everything that comes along with that young man, with that young lady. And third, to be very thoughtful about your why. Because if your why is to fix someone or to see yourself as a gift to a certain group of kids, that's not it. That's not it either. As a teacher, I'm going to tell you what made me a better teacher. What made me a better teacher were those young folks who challenged me. They challenged me around classroom management. They challenged me around content, right? They made me do a better job in preparing for them the next morning. And so really, again, getting down to that why. And are you okay to be uncomfortable? Are you okay with being comfortable with the uncomfortable?
And I think in addition, it is, do you love the community that you're about to serve? You know, when I think about teacher recruitment, I often think about how we recruit police, and then we're surprised when we get the results that we get, right? Like we recruit these policemen, they might have a degree, they passed all the physical tests, they passed all the psychological tests, but did we really get down to the nuts and bolts of why they want to do what they want to do in Vallejo, in Richmond, in Oakland, in what these cities? Are they there for the right reasons? Are they there for the Wild Wild West? And so often when we talk to teachers, oh, I'm here to teach the good kids. Oh, no, you're not. You're here to teach every child that is in your classroom because every child's family is contributing to your paycheck. You don't get to pick and choose what child you're going to educate. Not only that, what are you going to do when that parent goes sideways on you because they had a bad day? Do you even understand what's happening in the communities that we serve in these various urban centers? And if you don't understand it, then your teacher education program just absolutely has miseducated you. I went to teacher ed at USF. I heard it was the best. I wanted to go to the top notch because teaching was what I wanted to do for my entire career. And I came out of that program. I could have taught in a private school very well with all the kids who come with the families, you know, that have all the money and the kid comes reading. But I was not prepared for what I learned on 98th and Bancroft. I was prepared only because I went to school in Richmond. And so I had to pull from that energy. So what we need to do is do a better job of ensuring that people are a fit for our communities and realize that these are, teachers can make, you know, with their benefits package, up to $100,000 at the end of the salary schedule. So we need to get serious with recruitment, and our programs need to lift up on what it is that our teachers do not know about these communities that they're about to serve.
Yeah, you I think you both hit the nail on the head. You know, the one piece that just kind of came up was human psychology. And I've never really thought about that as being a component of our teacher education, but just helping our teachers to understand psychology, the psychology of the students, the psychology of the family, their own psychology, and being able to move in that direction. So this question is for Dr. Bishop. Dr. Bishop, I am fascinated by your career. You have worked in the Bay Area, you have worked in Sacramento, and now you are in Vallejo. I will tell you, as someone who has worked in multiple regions as well, that ability to go from place to place is not an ability that everybody has. I've seen it in Vallejo lots of times where we'll get educators from Oakland or Richmond, and they have great experiences from working in those communities, but they often simplify things and feel like, okay, coming to Vallejo is going to be easier because it's not Oakland or Richmond, and then get to Vallejo and realize, oh, there's a whole new set of challenges and opportunities here. How do you seamlessly move from region to region and still manage to find yourself not just being a successful educator in those communities, but a successful community member? How do you do that?
First of all, I apologize. My granddaughter throws a fit every single time I get on Zoom. It is her time to do a complete show out. So hopefully you can hear me over what is happening right now.
You are good. Tell her we love her.
Say hi. So how do you go successfully into a community? You go humbly into that community. You go humbly with questions. You've read the data. You know what the data says about all students. You have disaggregated the data so that nothing is hidden. You know how Black boys are performing. You know how Latinx girls are performing. You know all that data. So you go with that understanding of what has happened. You go celebrating what has happened to date to make differences in what you're seeing. You go humbly into people's churches, into places where you're uncomfortable, where you may be the only one of your own race or your own gender. You go humbly. And then from that analysis, people could tell you that I always have my notebook. I'm just listening and writing, listening and writing, listening and writing, and developing plans with my team. And my team is filled with people who are born and raised. It's also filled with people who have been successful in environments. When I built my team that included Dr. Shackelford, I'd already said there was nothing that she really had to tell me. All she had to do is verify her identity, because I already knew what she had done in her career for the students in Vallejo. So you go humbly, you go with your research base, you go asking a lot of questions, and you do not become the expert on anything. The more questions you ask, the more you want to ask. And you try to figure out, how can you build a system that will last beyond me? People are always telling me, well, Dr. Bishop, you did this and that and this. Nope, sure didn't. The community did it. All I did was ask a lot of questions. And then it sustains itself because the people own it and embrace it. I hope that helped.
And what Dr. Bishop just described is also the formula by which teachers build those same types of relationships in classrooms with students. You don't go in knowing it all. You don't go in sage on stage. You work yourself into that community in which you are building, asking questions, getting to know your families, getting to know your students, and taking what you've learned and creating community with that. The good, the bad, and the ugly. You create community with that. And you create it with them in mind, with their stories in mind, with how they responded to your questions in mind, using them, helping them become their own leaders in their own learning. That's agency. And what she just described on a larger scale is creating agency within a community, working in a community, becoming part of that community, and eventually showing that community their own agency, their own power, and then watching what happens.
Man, I swear I just had this conversation the other day. I think I'm talking to all the powers that be out there. We may have to show this video to all of our teacher candidates and admin candidates, because this has been a master class on community engagement and community pedagogy here. I'm just in awe of some of the things that I've heard. And I love that piece that you just talked about, Dr. Shackelford, the idea of the goal of community engagement is to give agency to the community. And I think as educators, we think of it the other way around. We think of community engagement as our job to hold the community's hand and not empower them. And you all are flipping it on its head and saying, no, the goal is to empower them and give them agency, because the ultimate goal is to give it back to them, to say that we helped you build it, but now we're handing it back over to you and we're giving it back. Well, I got so many different places to go, but Dr. Shackelford, I have a question specific for you. Go ahead.
Can I add can I give a real life example?
Please, please.
What agency looks like. Dr. Bishop, this is when she first was hired in Vallejo. And as you know, she has a lot of relationships up and down California. She heard about a particular grant, and it was the Positive Youth Justice Initiative, PYJI. And this was monies that were to be used for young people who've had interactions within the juvenile justice system. What she knew, what we knew, is that Vallejo, we had a very high population of our young people being involved in the juvenile justice system. Long story short, she had notified me and said, Dr. Shackelford, I want you to go to Sacramento and you're going to talk to this person. And you're going to tell them that you're here representing me and we would like to take part in this grant. No problem. Get in my car, I go to Sacramento. I'm in the room with law enforcement, okay? Unknown to me, I'm thinking I'm going to some community schools event with other educators. It is me with about 100 law enforcement. And I'm like, this is the wrong meeting. Like, these folks aren't talking about schools and education. And the funding was literally written for the juvenile justice system. It was not a grant written for educational systems. So I'm sitting in there and I'm texting her, just positive that I'm in the wrong meeting. She was like, nope, that's the meeting. Is such and such there? I said, yes. Is that nope? At the end of the meeting, just go talk to this person. So I did. And do you know, at the end of the day, they rewrote that grant to include an LEA, a local educational agency.
Wow.
Vallejo, just because she had the vision for knowing this community needs funding in order to really address what's going on with our young people who are being involved in the juvenile justice system. And because of that, we were awarded over $800,000 to work with our young people in high school.
Wow.
That is what you call agency. Her sitting with the community, hearing what their concerns were, and then knowing what direction to go, what resources to tap into in order to access the funding. But for the juvenile justice system to open the doors to the only school district to receive that money, that was huge.
Well, you know, I always get a smile on my face when PYJI come up, some of the most fulfilling work of my life personally, and you know, the lessons that I learned a part of that grant, I have definitely taken them everywhere I've gone. Dr. Shack, I got a different question for you, and of course, Dr. Bishop, feel free to chime in on this. I know prior to going to Elite, you went back into the classroom for a year. I have a friend of mine who she has been an administrator in LA for about 10 years. And this year she went back into the classroom to teach 12th grade English. She said to me a couple months back, she said, I think every administrator should, after about 7 to 10 years in that role, should go back into the classroom for a year, just to remind themselves of what that experience is. Would you mind just kind of sharing with us some of the takeaways that you got from going back into the classroom and how it's informed the work that you are now doing with the Elite?
Great question. And yes, I think one of the best placements for myself was going back into that classroom after almost 10 years in administration. So I spent 12 years teaching. Then I was promoted to a vice principal. 6 months after becoming a vice principal, promoted to principal. And promoted means I did not have to interview for the job. Then I spent 4 years as a principal, and then Dr. Bishop came and promoted me as a director in helping when she was hired on in Vallejo. Spent 4 years working as an assistant superintendent and went back to the classroom after that 4th year. The best thing that could have ever happened to me. And I'll tell you why. It allowed me the time to see what the classroom experience was like after putting a number of initiatives in place. Let me now go experience the initiatives that we helped put into place. And so what I learned was the role of a teacher is the most important role. That is not what I learned. It was reinforced on just how important the role of the teacher is. 2, the importance of there being a vision from the top. Because where there is no vision, it is nothing but confusion and, frankly, a hot mess for teachers. Because teachers are turning left and right looking for direction when there isn't any. Which makes the job is already hard, but it makes it that much harder when there is not a clear pathway for me to really do this work. I also learned the importance of consistent PDs, consistent training, always having a place for teachers and staff to discuss what's going on in their realms of influence so that the macro system can help support it. It felt good being back in the classroom because I was able to touch families again, right? The further you go from the classroom, you're not as intimate as you are with families as you are as a teacher. And then I learned that intimacy was lost because the more engaged I became with families, the more families would say, oh my gosh, this is odd. I've never had a teacher, show up at my door because you were concerned, right? Kid cussed me out, flat out cussed me out. And he was ready for me to send him home. I said, oh no, son, you're not going home. Have a seat. What? You're not gonna call my mother? Have a seat. Kid was waiting, packed his bag, was waiting for me to send him out. Son, you're not going anywhere. You mine. You ain't gonna send me to the principal's office? I said, I am the principal. I'm the teacher and the principal. End of the day, I put him in my car and I took him home. Me, him, and his mother had a meeting on that night. And I have to say, this young man did not come from a strong family unit. Mom had her issues. At the end of the day, I was able to build a rapport with that mother. In addition to that particular student, and they understood my heart. Did he cuss me out? Yes, he did, to all the teachers who are listening. And I had a choice. I could have sent him home. I could have did a whole lot of things that I know educators do when things happen of that nature. I chose to build community. And I chose to give that young man a different response than he was used to. This young man was taller than me. Now, this is 5th grade. This young man was taller than me. He was like the size of my husband. Was I frustrated because he cussed me out? Absolutely. I'm human just like everybody else. But I knew as a teacher, you can't take this stuff personal. These are kids. And guess what? Kids go through things. And when they go through things, that kind of stuff comes out during class, at school. And it's my job now to find out, where is that coming from? Do you talk to adults like this on a regular basis? And if you do, son, we need to work on that, because that will get you killed as a Black boy. And so my role became multifaceted. Yes, I was his teacher, but I also knew he also needed the love of a mother. A mother don't throw away her baby. A mother disciplines her children, and she disciplines her children with love. And that's the type of love, that's the type of culture we are building at Elite. Is it easy? No. Do we have our challenges? Absolutely. Nowhere is perfect. But at the end of the day, we are building such a community that helps rear and raise our young people to be able to flourish in this world that we live in.
Yes, Miss Bofield, capital O, capital M, capital G. we just got a Sunday morning sermon in 3 minutes and 36 seconds. That was awesome. As you were talking, I was thinking like Mr. Santos also went back into the classroom for a little while, and he has also said to me that not only for him going back into the classroom, but working with an age group he had never worked with before. And then having to experience 3 months as a teacher in COVID. He was like, that has really informed him in terms of what he needs to be a leader and understanding what teachers are going through. And so a lot of the things that you mentioned there kind of echoed what I've been hearing. And I think is so important for a lot of our teachers, our up and coming teachers, to hear, because I think they think that administrators are so removed from the classroom that they don't get it. They don't understand. And it's nice to hear someone who has actually taken the time to go back to be able to say, no, I do get it. I do hear, but the philosophy doesn't change. Mm-hmm. If anything, being a teacher, it challenges you to actually live up to the philosophy that you profess. But so, all right, we have about, go ahead.
Let me say, there are administrators who don't get it though. I want to say that. Who talk about pedagogy, but don't know how to walk in it. Mm. Who tell teachers do X, Y, and Z, but they can't do it themselves. That is real. And it's important for teachers, when you go to different schools, you need to be very mindful of your administration. What experience do my admin come with? Because what we say a lot of at Elite, we will not ask you to do anything that we can't do. Well, and if I'm asking you to do something, then it's going to come with resources and support in order for you to do it.
Right.
So
we have about 15 minutes left, a little less. I wanted to talk about, Dr. Bishop was and I were on a panel a few weeks back. And it is just always a pleasure to hear the both of you speak. But the panel was on abolitionist leadership. And if I have ever met two leaders, I won't even say administrators, two leaders who embody the principles of what it means to be anti-racist and abolitionist, it is the both of you. And so I was hoping that you all could just share some insights on what it means in terms of that daily grind of being anti-racist and abolitionist, because even though you're no longer a part of the larger system, I know that you still experience that grind every day working with Elite. So if you all could just speak to that a little bit, I would appreciate it.
So I think, first of all, just to piggyback on the importance of the teacher, school reform would be a powerful teacher in every classroom that teaches with rigor and relevance. That would eliminate the need for admin, would eliminate the need for anything else. A powerful teacher in every classroom doing what they do naturally and supported with professional development and so on to grow. So, I believe, Ijoma, that every decision has to be focused on students. Every decision focused on students leads us into waters that are often uncharted territory. Because unfortunately, what education, juvenile justice, a lot of these big so-called child-serving systems are built on what adults want. And who cares what the outcomes are for students? You can keep failing students. You can have a 50% graduation rate. You can have 130 or Black students ready to go to college when they come out. It doesn't matter as long as the adults are happy and they'll cash their check every month. Who cares? And so the abolitionist leader basically says, our children deserve the best. They deserve freedom within systems. They deserve to be affirmed within systems. And whatever it takes, you can come at me all kinds of ways, which is what happens on a daily basis. There's a word called carcerality. So really trying to make the administrator seem as if they are doing something wrong, to make the person who believes in all children believe like they're doing something wrong. It happens teacher to teacher peer groups. That powerful teacher gets criticized. Why are you doing all of that? Why are you wearing that? Why are you dressing up? So, the status quo tries to pull people in. The abolitionist leader and teacher will not go down that road. The abolitionist leader and teacher believes that all of their students are college material. It doesn't mean that all students are going to go to college, but if we want college for our own children, we want them to go off to Harvard or wherever we want them to go, then certainly we should want it for the communities that we serve. And often their parents don't know how to advocate. There are many parents in our school that know exactly what they want, no question about it. We have some powerful, powerful parents. There are also parents that are very tired and don't even know how to advocate for their own needs without getting very angry at you. And so the abolitionist leader hears that, turns it around into what can we do better? The abolitionist leader will stand. There will be nobody else around you but you, and you're standing for students. Dr. Shackelford did not say. Her being in that classroom, yes, was absolutely a blessing. I believe in all children having a powerful teacher. Santos, same thing. I believe in all admin going back into the classroom. But with Dr. Shackelford, it was supposed to be a punishment to put her back in that classroom. She was supposed to hear that and go off and apply to do something else. So we have to be clear that the abolitionist leaders on a daily basis face scrutiny, face public embarrassment and humiliation. She was on the front page of a paper. Conversation was supposed to be private, ended up on the front page of a newspaper. Those very same writers need to come out and write about what's happening at Elite. Have they been there to write a positive story? Do they care anything about the fact that Black and brown children are getting coding starting in transitional kindergarten? Do they care anything about the fact that our high school students are coding robots from their computer and the robots are moving on a graph paper? I wonder if they do. If they do, if there's anybody that's listening to this, come on out and interview Dr. Shackelford now and put her on the front page to talk about that. But abolitionist leaders are used to doing this work underground, recognizing that is not about notoriety. It is about changing generations of the miseducation of Black and brown communities in California. And that is why Elite was founded. That is why we fight those daily struggles, because when we are successful, Dr. Ananuju, when the books start coming out, nobody can undo what it is that we put in place. See, our board is made up of people, of abolitionist leaders. You need abolitionist leaders at every part of your organization. Teachers, classified staff, parents, we need abolitionist students, all factions of our organization in order to be successful. And when that happens, it will be known worldwide. And we're excited about that, but that's not why we do it. We do it because our children deserve it and our families deserve it.
Dr. Shack, did you want to add anything to that?
I think so. Yes, and I think Dr. Bishop described it very well. What we're talking about, what we wrote in our charter petition, sounds good. Okay, it's the right thing to do, but everyone should know it comes at a price, and it is a very high price. So when Dr. Bishop talks about the fight, it's a fight every day. When you make a choice to do something, to build something that is not status quo, that is different, when you decide to build something that will actually improve the outcomes of people's lives, and it will improve it to where it will actually take away from those who make money off of our young people not succeeding. Prison is a big business, huge business. And as they build prisons, as you know, they build them off of whether or not our young people can read by the 3rd grade. We're saying you won't be building any prisons, any more prisons for our young people. When you start actually changing the status quo, that's not an easy walk. You get talked about, lied on. People or organizations, or for political reasons, are trying to take you out. It's a daily walk. And so let's go back to the why. Not only am I a co-founder and deputy CEO, I am a mother with 2 daughters who attend Elite, who believes in Elite, who believes in every teacher that we've hired to do right, not only by everybody else's kids, but mine as well. And we are serious about it. We're so serious. And we would like to invite any and all educators who have heard something that resonates within your own spirit, your own calling, your own purpose in life, to join us on this wonderful adventure of educating all students, of building community with all people.
Well, that does that. I will just say a few things in closing, last few minutes. One, thank you both for coming on today. I mean, this was, again, I said the hours be flying by when we're having a great conversation. This hour went by extremely quickly. And I feel like I've taken more notes in this conversation than I have in any other. And part of it is just because of the work that we're doing at Toro. And I found a lot of the things that was said in this conversation today to be reinforcing of the vision that we are trying to put forth. I will also say this. I was having this conversation with Dr. Mari Gray yesterday, where we were talking about how a lot of schools have very beautifully written mission and vision statements. And I said to her, the minute I walk on your campus and I see a police officer, all of a sudden, everything you've said in your mission and vision statement gets thrown out of the window, because just the mere presence of that individual says how you really feel about how our children should be treated, right? It's not to put police officers down. It's simply to say that if your approach is disciplined by love, then there's no room for that on your campus, right? It is disciplined by love, is what you described, Dr. Shack, is putting a kid in your car who is taller than you, bigger than you, and saying, we want to go have a conversation with your mom. And boldly walking through that door and having that conversation, even though it can be difficult for you, difficult for mom, difficult for the child, right? But that's the work of an abolitionist. The other thing that I was thinking of is, and I will suggest that anyone who hasn't read this article, read it. It's an article written by Dr. Jeff Duncan Andrade, and it's called Gangsta, Wanksters, and Riders. And I feel like what you all were just describing in terms of the abolitionist leader is a lot of what he talks about in that paper. The rider is the person who, come hell or high water, is going to ride for our young people, because the reality of it is that the system is a system of adults who are always against the young, and they need someone to stand up for themselves. So this has been a great conversation. I just want to let folks know who are listening in right now. If you want to know what our EDDI program is going to look like come the fall and moving forward into the future, if you want to know what GSOE is going to look like going into the future, then this conversation is going to give you a glimpse, because we are about taking what Dr. Bishop and Dr. Shackelford just shared with us and implementing it in a program that is going to prepare educators that can do the work that they described here, right? This is not Target. This is not Home Depot. You don't just clock in and clock out. This is something that you have to be willing to dedicate yourself to. And as I tell people all the time, it's nothing personal. I'm not trying to weed you out because I don't like you. I'm just trying to weed you out because this job requires more. You will never get paid enough to do the work that we do. And if that's your motivation, if that's your why, as Dr. Shackelford has talked about, then you will always struggle. And so we are going to be about the business here at Toro of creating educators who have that why that goes beyond the material and goes to a deeper level that can really impact our families, but more importantly, impact the community of Vallejo, because that's a place where I was born and raised. And I'm so proud to have these two powerful women who are doing work in my hometown, almost in my home neighborhood, man. Y'all there in College Park, I grew up right down the street. So, it's just wonderful connections all the way around. All right. With that being said, I just want to thank Dr. Shackelford and Dr. Bishop again. This has been a great conversation. We are going to log off.